Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, what a massive week it's been. The Fed has had to print more money and altcoins have finally had a big green week. So we've got so much news to get through. Let's get into it. We do welcome a few hundred new subscribers this week, so thanks for joining us on this crypto investing journey we're going on. And thanks to the dozen members that rocked up to our dinner in Brisbane, and we had dozens come to our free meetup afterwards as well. So once the bull market gets into full swing, we do plan on visiting all the capital cities in Australia this time around. Just a quick reminder, you can win $50 of Bitcoin every week just by leaving a comment on any of our videos with the favorite part and the timestamp, and we'll shoot you that money over Lightning Network. Okay, so into the local news, where this was a great report exposing the black economy report itself. So what it shows here is that Australia is relatively low in terms of the size of the black economy, and it's been steadily declining. So this narrative of the war on cash due to the black economy, it's simply not true. And I'm going to have Robbie Barwick on from the CEC report to talk about this in more detail this week. I guess this is one of the side effects of having so many people that are happy to raise their voice, and we got a lot of petitions for that cash ban. And similarly, now we're seeing a lot of people protest against climate change. So I'm not going to get into the politics of climate change today, but I guess the point I want to get across is that we're going to see more and more civil unrest or social movements against government. And to have 22,000 people in little old Hobart come out, I'm sure there was plenty in all the other capital cities as well, but it's just a sign of the times. So over to China, where the yuan extended their losses. Again, weak macro data continues due to this trade war and a number of other reasons. And China are going to get behind their own. So we've been talking about phone sales, semiconductors, and Chinese consumers are ditching Apple for the Huawei phone. And we know that they are going to support local. The government's going to force them to support local. But over to Japan, where they've actually overtaken China in terms of the largest holder of US Treasury bonds. So this is another, weapon that the Chinese can use, or any country can use, to dump those US treasuries if push comes to shove. So it's funny watching these wars get played out, on the internet and in the markets rather than hot wars these days. So over to India, where they've become the first country that I can think of that's actually trialed modern monetary theory. So Indian stocks absolutely pumping on this news. It came as a bit of a surprise, funding this tax cut. But this is one of the scenarios that I've been laying out. Maybe we don't get that crash. Maybe central banks go so crazy and print so much money, everything just goes up. Now, that is so unfair. It's going to lead to inequality. The rich that own all the assets are going to get richer. But low interest rates, money printing hasn't really worked. Modern monetary theory is the next thing that they're going to try. So look, let's see how much of that money goes to the little guy versus the top end of town, because we know trickle down economics doesn't work. But India setting the bar. Let's see who is next to join the MMT party. Now, we've been reading about the disruption to the oil markets in the news, and oil had its biggest ever one-day jump. It just goes to show you how all those, algorithms and options, the derivative markets, as soon as something goes out of that sort of standard deviation range, there's just so many, liquidations, and the price moves so hard so fast. So look, Iran standing up for themselves here, vowing major war if the US conducts any sort of strikes, but this is all part of the blame game, the US acting as well police. Are Australia going to get more involved over there? So much news to report. It is really crazy watching this unfold. And this was a great piece by marekts, legendary resource investor who I have had on the channel a while back, talking about how oil plays a role in different crises and the impact it has on gold. So the takeaway here is that gold doesn't always react straight away, but generally over time, this is very bullish for gold when these sort of events take place. Now, another gold rigging case, JP Morgan have been called a criminal enterprise by some of the regulators here. Every month we have another instance of, proof that the gold and silver markets have been manipulated to some degree. So all this stuff was conspiracy theory when I went down the rabbit hole 10 years ago, and it is turning out to be true. A cool little chart here I just wanted to show you was gold priced in special drawing rights. So the special drawing right is a basket of all the world's largest currencies, or a handful of them. But gold is trading at all-time highs against the euro now as well. And it's basically trading at all-time highs against every currency other than the US dollar because the US dollar has got so strong at the moment. And one of the things that I believe is funny and coming back to haunt the US, and I'm a big believer in karma, is that world dominance that they've asserted by having the world's largest or world reserve currency is actually going to come back full circle and really hurt them. The dollar's getting so strong, people are turning against them. Even the Bank of England, Mark Carney, people saying that this is not working for the rest of the world. And I don't think that the US dollar is going to continue to reign supreme for very long. So into the US markets, where we saw Overstock CEO, Mr. Byrne here. Patrick Byrne, his first name always escapes me. Sorry for you guys that caught that live stream the other night as well. But dumping $90 million of stock and saying that he's going to be buying gold, Bitcoin, crypto, and talking about how out of reach the deep state is. So you rarely hear these things in the media because it goes against that mainstream narrative. But really interesting that such a smart guy, this isn't a conspiracy theorist. He's not trying to sell us any fear porn or anything like that. He's actually just telling us what he's doing, and he's seeking the safety of assets outside the system. So look, Microsoft announced that record buyback, 40 million. This is the biggest market cap company in the world. If revenues aren't necessarily going up, we know the story. Borrow money at these record low rates, buy back stock, keep investors happy. All the employees that are getting paid on stock performance and have their options, they actually make more money by buying back shares rather than investing it and growing the company. And look, the rich are getting out while the going's good, just as we saw in that previous story. So it really worries me what is happening in the future. Who's planning for the next, waves of innovation and future expansion for these big tech companies? Okay, so last week I tweeted this. When do you think the Fed are going to relaunch QE? And I personally thought it was a lot closer than what most people think. The ECB relaunching QE and really playing it down. And well done to 60-80% of you guys who did say within 12 months. And then this week we got the news that these repo rates had spiked. The banks don't trust each other to lend and shore up their books overnight. Look, just in a nutshell, when banks have fractional reserve lending and even the reserves that they have are not enough to cover that fractional reserve, that's when banks have to sell some assets overnight to get more liquidity to shore up their books. And that's when the Fed had to step in. And I think, this week it's been something like 50 to 70 billion a night. So it is crazy. It's not the same as QE, but they've come out and said that this is going to continue for the foreseeable future. So nobody knows what's going on. This is known as the repo markets freezing overnight and rates hitting that new all-time high of 10%. When we know that interest rates are far lower than that, it shouldn't cost that much to lend money. So this is exactly what we saw in China before we had those bank collapses. Now, I don't know if any US banks are on the verge of collapse, but it's scary. This stuff doesn't happen for no reason whatsoever. So former head of the plunge protection team saying that the Fed has to print more money and buy more debt. So again, this was another thing that was conspiracy theory, that we had a plunge protection team. Each time the stock market falls too much, people step in to either freeze the market, stabilize it, or buy. And this happens to a larger extent, far more in China and other countries, but it happens in the US. And that's why people have done nothing but get long, leverage up, short volatility. The Fed has their back. That's been the message for the past 10 years. And no wonder the head of the plunge protection team saying that, come on Fed, time to step up, print more money. And I think they're going to end up buying stocks and ETFs like we've seen in Japan and other places as well. So sure enough, the Fed may be restarting QE in November. This is how they are going to do it. As I said, this is not exactly the same as QE, but buying different types of mortgage-backed securities, US treasuries, and rolling that over as well. So they're not going to call it QE. It's going to start with if, buts, and maybes, but I think you guys all know where this ends. It ends with buying more bonds. It probably ends with buying stocks and other assets, as well as taking rates negative. So during these uncertain times, it's that important to look after your nest egg and have that education, which is hopefully something we're helping you with. And if you're interested in setting up the self-managed super, we do have to say a big thank you to our sponsor, New Brighton Capital, who've got that free consultation if you just want to check check out and see if this is for you or not. And obviously you can set up your self-made super with some Bitcoin, crypto. This is all ATO approved and fully regulated, and hundreds of you guys have taken them up on this service now. So don't forget to mention Nuggets News for a discount. Alrighty, into the crypto news now, where Germany have unveiled plans to block Libra and any Libra-like currency. So they're calling these parallel currencies. But at a time when central banks are really being strained and losing control, they're having less and less impact. The last thing they want are these other currencies stealing market share off them. So look, we've seen France, we've seen China, now Germany blocking these different types of currencies, and interested to see how this actually affects exchanges, if more and more countries continue to do this, and stable coins themselves. Is something like Makers DAI and decentralized coins going to become really important if they start to block some of these more centralized stable coins? So Wells Fargo, we know that they're launching their own stable coin. Every banking corporation is going to try and launch their own to make more money and make it cheaper. So as they're saying here, it's going to be faster and cheaper than Swift. They're all going to tell this story. I know the XRP community are telling me that, how are all these banks going to talk to each other and interact with if they've each got their own coins. So there's a lot of theories out there whether this can be done on a DEX, a decentralized exchange, whether you need a liquidity pool, if banks are going to trust each other. But at the moment, they're all experimenting with their own coins. Japanese messaging giant Line rolling out their crypto trading platform, BitMax. If we've got any Japanese subs, or if you've used this, if you're on holiday in Japan, let me know what you think of this. But there's just so many on-ramps. It's crazy watching this. And the next bull market, remember when everyone was waiting to get verified? You can just walk in to your local 7-Eleven now, anywhere in the Philippines, and buy some crypto. Or, in Australia, we've got mobile apps coming out. So many on-ramps, Square Cash App in the US. So Binance launching fiat to crypto OTC trading within a month. So it is unbelievable the ability of people to get out of that fiat system, depending on what country you're in, and into crypto when that next, the new all-time high comes. I really think it is going to be crazier than the last run, but let me know what you guys think below. So EA Games tweeted invest in crypto, and I got pretty excited about this, like a lot of people, before realizing that crypto is a character in one of their new games. So well played with the capital C there. Apex Legends, I know that's pretty popular with a lot of you guys, but a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. I'm not sure what the SEC will have to say about that, but we know that gaming, I think there's a lot of affection for crypto and the overlap between the two industries. This week we saw Wax come out and launch Crypto Gold, a cool little strategic game. For those that don't know, Wax is one of my favorite projects. I have done a deep dive into it if you search Wax Nuggets News, and working closely with EOS as well. Now, one of the fears about EOS was the collusion, and the governance was meant to iron that out. But as it has sort of ended up, we've got a lot of the entities that govern the chain, the 21 elected block producers, are now in China. And, CoinDesk certainly have their own narratives and motives to push. They're not the biggest fans of EOS. But if you are in the EOS community, let me know what you think. Is this a worry that we've got so many block producers that are sort of voting for each other, and a lot of them are exchanges that hold a lot of EOS? So whether or not you say they're colluding, we know this kind of all happens behind the scenes. And is this something to worry about? Now we've got so many not centralized, but more centralized chains, and Neo is another good example of that. Again, Chinese project. I've got a deep dive interview with Neo this week, so I think you guys are going to really enjoy that. Look, they've been way behind the 8 ball, and hopefully, Neo 3.0 and that pilot network that's getting ready for launch next year is going to, bring them back up, and hopefully price-wise as well, because Neo's certainly been a laggard lately. Now, XRP lawsuit, I've spoken about this in a number of videos. This week, again, CoinDesk saying that they've avoided these questions about whether or not XRP is a security. I spoke to a few people in the XRP community that I trust, and they're saying that this is a nonsense article. It has been addressed, and they don't think that there's any danger of XRP being a security, but just something to be aware that this case continues. Now, another project that's copped a fair bit of heat lately about being fairly centralized is Hashgraph. Again, I've recorded an interview. I've got so much good content just waiting to come out for you guys with Limon. So he is the founder creator of Hashgraph. That launched this week. Pretty disappointing for initial investors. I think it actually listed down 40%, and there's only 4 or 6% of the initial supply out there. So this reminds me of an IEO where there's a lot of supply to come into circulation over the next 15 years. What do you guys think about this gossip, the Hashgraph protocol? Do you think Hedera is the latest, buzzword and cool blockchain and flavor of the month, and then everyone's going to forget about it? Or do you think that they're going to make some good partnerships and make inroads? Now, one project that divides people as well is IOTA, but they've been very busy building. So this is Chronicle. And this is a solution for long-term data storage, record keeping. So interesting, a bit of a pivot away from the Internet of Things that they've been going for, and also launching their industry marketplace this week as well. So it's always great to see, and you've got to ask yourself, is your project out there creating and building new products that need to be used in the real world? So OKX delisted 5 privacy coins, and if you caught the live stream I did yesterday, I spoke about this and the FATF rules. Privacy coins is such a noble cause and so important, but this is the risk that we take, that exchanges, upbit again the day after, just deciding they're going to delist all privacy coins. So look, maybe that causes them to trade for a premium, like when we see crypto get banned in certain countries. I'm not sure, but it is just something that I want you guys to be aware of if you are an investor in those privacy coins. Now, Ethereum is starting to implement snarks in a number of ways. So I did that tutorial for you guys on Tornado Cash, and this is another little startup, Aztec, igniting the use of snarks at their ceremony. So privacy is coming to Ethereum. It's already here, and I think it is coming to Bitcoin in the next 12 to 24 months as well. Now, Edward Snowden this week coming out, he's launched a book. The US government are trying to block any profits from his book because they're saying, look, he's only making money by telling these US government secrets, blah, blah, blah. But look, Snowden tweeted very clearly that this is all really good for Bitcoin. He's been a big advocate for Bitcoin and privacy the world over. So more and more of these big names, are they enemies of the state? Most people think Snowden's a hero, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, Craig Wright is in discussion, and he has asked for an extension to settle this multi-billion-dollar case. So some people think that he doesn't even have the coins, that he needs to hand over half of to the Climate estate. I spoke to some BSV supporters in Brisbane this week, and they were telling me that Craig's got these coins, he's going to dump them next year. So look, I certainly think that that's a small possibility, but you guys know I keep an open mind to everything. Be prepared, but I don't think that this is likely to upset markets too much, particularly if things get moving again in the bull market. That volume is going to be able to soak up even this large amount of selling. Now, the Department of Justice brought extortion charges against one of these early advisors to Ethereum and T0. So look, this does reflect kind of badly on these two projects. Talking about, threatening people, and 22% was it of all the funds raised, asking for those tokens. If not, I'm going to crush your project, and, threaten your family even, I believe, in one case. So not nice when this sort of stuff happens, but hopefully Mr. Nayeroff gets what is coming his way. Harbor is another STO project I covered in our top security tokens projects for you guys a while ago, and they've started to tokenize real estate to the tune of $100 million on top of Ethereum. So you're sick of me saying this, but all these standards are being built out on top of Ethereum, and that's why we've seen Ethereum start to move in the right direction, I think, this week. There's too much happening on there to ignore. Now, this is another prediction markets project. This is Gnosis, and Sight have built on top of Gnosis. So similar to Augur, more and more prediction markets, they're using DAI, which is really cool. But yeah, you can basically bet on anything straight from your wallet, and we need more liquidity, more people using this. Yeah, so awesome to see these projects coming out. One of the things you can bet on here is when multi-collateral DAI is going to launch, and that is something that I've been waiting on for a long time. But speaking of Maker, they have launched, or Loom has launched them, helped them launch on Tron and Binance. So Loom is a project experimenting with Plasma and Layer 2 solutions, and that allows you to have other chains interacting with the Ethereum blockchain as well. So blockchains within blockchains is maybe the way to think about that. But DeFi space growing to other chains now is very exciting to see. Maker's a project we got you guys in very early, and it's had another good week this week. Now, another update on that multi-collateral DAI, which is going to be backed by a basket of things instead of just Ethereum. And you guys know which coins I think that is going to benefit the most. We've done a unit on that in our members area. But one of the things that they are introducing is this lock-up savings account. So you can actually lock up DAI and be guaranteed a 5% interest rate for a year. More and more of these DeFi projects, this space is just exploding. Synthetics is another one that I'm very bullish on, that I believe is looking like it wants to break out to new all-time highs soon. Now, one of the things that is not going so well on Ethereum is the clash between the miners, whether or not to switch to program proof of work to stop those ASICs dominating the network on Ethereum. So this is something that has divided the smartest minds in the Ethereum community, and there's no clear resolution yet. So while there's a lot of talk about switching to ETH 2.0 and proof of stake, in the meantime, how are we going to run the original Ethereum chain? And are we going to fork in this program proof of work change? Let's see if it happens on the testnet successfully. But again, something that we need to be aware of that could possibly cause more issues down the line if not resolved. There's been a lot of debate in the Ethereum community and on Twitter at the moment about whether or not Ethereum is money. Now, as I tweeted, you can pay any bill in Australia with Ethereum for a number of years now through Living Room of Satoshi and similar services, and BitPay are adding support for Ethereum. So any cryptocurrency, to me, is a form of money. Whether or not it's good money or sound money or hard money is up to you. But when we can pay for all these goods and services, I'm not sure how you can say that it's not a type of money. Now, the Ethereum blockchain has been pretty congested at the moment, but miners have allowed for that increase of the gas limit there. So Ethereum mines a 10 megabyte block, I believe, and the number of transactions in the pool has really decreased from over 100,000. So look, some people are saying that no one's using Ethereum. Other people are saying that it's so congested because everyone's using it and fees have gone up. We know that Tether have switched over to use the Ethereum instead of that Omni layer on Bitcoin. So lots happening on the Ethereum chain. A bit of a worry if we get into a full-blown bull market and fees continue to go up. But it does put strain on the miners and those gas limits. But we can adapt to that in the short term. But hopefully in the medium to longer term, we've got that hard fork coming and the move to Ethereum 2.0. We've also got these second layer solutions. Ethereum's RAID network is getting there slowly and surely, but the Bitcoin Lightning network is definitely heading in the right direction. So this was a cool app I downloaded and had to play around with Zap. So allowing you to buy Bitcoin directly into the Lightning network on a mobile phone, on a desktop. I installed it. So yeah, avoiding other exchanges, straight into Lightning network, another on-ramp with credit card integration. Very, very cool that even a beginner can now buy some Bitcoin and have it in their Lightning wallet. Now, some negative news. We did get VanEck and SolidX withdrawing their Bitcoin ETF proposal. We've seen Jay Clayton out a lot in public recently talking about how there's so much more that needs to be done before that ETF is going to get approved. There's no accurate price discovery. He said no big exchanges are going to list Bitcoin. I actually think that's nonsense because we've already got big stock markets around the world listing different types of Bitcoin products, and we've got futures even on the US markets. So look, a little bit of tit for tat. They continue to say they want to support innovation, but here we are, 2 or 3 years in, we've had these ETFs getting rejected for now. So look, I don't know if we need it. We know that BACT is coming this week. We see things like Arab Bank Switzerland opening up custody, brokerage services, insurance. I think that's why we've seen low volumes on some of these exemption products. We know we got a little bit of an exemption ETF product, and the volume was something like $40,000 in the first week trading. There's no rush. There's no people saying, "Oh, I want to buy Bitcoin, but I can't because there's no ETF at the moment." So, look, I actually think Backed could be a little bit of a underwhelming launch because smart money, they've got a seat at the table. They own their Bitcoin already. There's so many other ways to get in at the moment. Now, that ETF is going to be good for the retail investor, and all this stuff comes together for that next bull market bubble. Big soccer clubs in Premier League matches with Bitcoin on their sleeves. More and more influencers are going to be talking about Bitcoin, these household names and companies all experimenting with blockchain. I just don't see a scenario where we can't have another retail FOMO and big excitement with your friends asking you, "Hey, I saw that Bitcoin in soccer on the weekend," or football, I should say, sorry. But yeah, I definitely think that you guys would have to agree that next round is going to be absolute craziness. So have a plan, be prepared. Are you going to trade it? When everyone's euphoric, are you going to take profits? So I wanted to share this post with you because we've had a tremendous week this week again in our members area, and it's it's pretty proud to be able to stand there with 1,000 people all helping each other, and we had over 1,000 people for 2 years now throughout this bear market as well as bull market. So look, when everyone's helping each other out, it's made for some fantastic trade opportunities and analyzing the sentiment. And this week, I really noticed that everyone was so down on altcoins. The maximalists were at all-time toxic levels. We saw influencers that would previously been pumping altcoins coming out and saying, "Hey, I've sold most of my alts. I'm in all Bitcoin now," or "I'm a Bitcoin maximalist now." And sentiment ultimately guides markets. It's one of my key messages that at the end of the day, whether you're a trader or an investor, it is sentiment that ultimately drives markets. So look, we've had some great trades this week on the ETH Bitcoin pair, ETH itself, and the alt perp contract on FTX, which I'll talk about in just a second. First off though, I do want to give a big thank you to this week's sponsor, who is Bybit. So this is another cool exchange, particularly if you're a beginner or intermediate. Nice clean layout. Look, the 4 coins that had great runs this week are these ETH, the Bitcoins, EOS and XRP. So there's plenty of coins for you to trade there if you're getting started to trade on margin. There's plenty of different order types. These guys have got a far better matching engine than BitMEX. That's why I'm happy to recommend them. And there is a bonus $60 for you guys that open up an account and fund that. So there's a link below for that. But let's get into the technical analysis. The tightening pattern continues, and haven't we had a few sniffs at trying to break out, and we haven't been able to quite get there. So we've run into the moving averages as well as that downtrend. And, we've tried to break down, but the bulls have stepped in. So again, this afternoon, if we just zoom right in on the higher sort of timeframes here, the bulls have stepped in. Each time it's had a chance to really capitulate. It hasn't happened yet. So we're still floating here. We're in no man's land. I did talk about this being the best possible scenario for altcoins if Bitcoin is fairly range bound and stays within these the parameters in this equilibrium pattern, and so far that has played out. So look, naturally this pattern is going to head downwards if no good news comes. Maybe Backed disappoints and we get that dump, but I just think there's so many people. I get the sense that there's so many people waiting to buy. Whether or not it's another dip down here, we've had 3 or 4 of, and we get another buy there, or whether or not it is that final capitulation and shakeout, and everyone getting really scared, and we get a wick down into the 8,000s. If nothing's changed fundamentally, I think that would be something I'd be looking to trade and get long, because we're still in these weekly moving averages. We're still in an uptrend. We've got declining sell volume. I think it all looks pretty positive, but Bitcoin dominance does need to hold. So this is the Bitcoin dominance chart, currently sitting at around 70. We tagged that moving average perfectly. If we form a lower high, that's when we're looking to roll over and get further downside for Bitcoin in terms of dominance. But let's get to the interesting chart. So this is the ETH USD pair, another big week. We would love this to close above the moving averages on the weekly chart. On the daily, we had increasing volume. We're now just pulling back into these moving averages on the daily time frame. All looks pretty healthy to me. As you can see that even more clearly how much Bitcoin and alts outperformed. That new indicator that I've been playing around with gave some great signals lately, and I'll be talking about that more, and we've had a few members try that out as well. So we want to do some back testing and get you guys some research before we release that into the wild. But FTX and these index products is really where it's at the moment, guys. So there is a link down below if you're interested and want a discount on fees. But when you want to get exposure to the large cap altcoins, they've had a tremendous week, and then we saw money rotate sort of down the CoinMarketCap list, and the mid caps that lagged had a huge run. They are pulling back harder, and obviously those low cap coins didn't really go as hard, and now they're giving a lot of that back already as well. So look, you're going to have to be a bit of a stock picker if you want to play around that low cap space and do your fundamental research. But being able to get exposure to these high cap alts, I really do think is just invaluable. So look, that's it for this week, guys. If you've enjoyed that, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in. I will talk to you again soon. Cheers.